Greetings, viewers. I'm Evan Jarvix with Make Oklahoma Weirder, and this is First Impressions. Welcome to episode 5. We're going to be looking at a hip-hop album. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm the foremost authority on hip-hop, or the foremost authority on local hip-hop, not by any stretch of the imagination, but I do know enough to know that there's a huge scene here. It's really a disservice to the scenes if you think it's just JB. JB is great, big fan. There's so much more going on here. Here's an album that I was actually invited to a listening party for. It is The North Face by Broox. Now, Broox may not be a very familiar name, and that is in part because this is the first album by Broox, but it's not the first album that this artist has ever made. I haven't really been around long enough to know his prior moniker and the entire catalog and history that goes along with it, but I was able to learn some of it at the listening party that I went to, which had a Q&A and which did preview some tracks from the album. It was nice. This guy formerly went by Moufpece da Rippa, who I only marginally know as a name, just being completely honest. I wasn't around here for that. From what I understand, that artist, that persona, was rather different than who this person has become in recent years, and he felt it necessary to sort of evolve in his music the way that he has evolved in life, which I think is a pretty cool thing. Certainly in electronic music, you have a lot of that, where artists will change their name so that their music can change with the muse that they're chasing as an artist. Now, Broox is apparently the legal surname of this artist, Brooks, B-R-O-O-K-S. Of course, here it's with an X, not unlike one Jarvix. This album, it's 19 tracks. I'm not going to say that there's really filler in this album because I honestly think it's really good. I like the narrative arc that it kind of brings to the table, and I think it has a diverse enough sound to keep you interested, but I feel like we could have shaved off some tracks here and there. We had to have. Regardless how I feel about the length, I can attest that it is an engaging listen. I think from start to finish, you get a lot of different sounds. There's a lot of elements that Broox has put in here to appeal to a lot of different demographics. Whether you're big on your bars, or you like your choruses, your hooks, whether you like your trap beats, or you're into kind of the more classic soul sampled goodness that I personally enjoy quite a bit. There's a little something for everyone. Even towards the end, he gets a little more adventurous beyond some of these, what I would call somewhat cliched musical tropes. There's even one track towards the end, I don't remember what it's called, but if you had brought it to me and not told me it was on a hip-hop album, I would seriously think this is from an indie electronic pop outfit of some sort, and maybe they collaborated with a rapper. Like, he gets a little adventurous on a couple of these tracks, and I respect that a lot, and I actually enjoy those tracks a lot. Perhaps I'm being informed a bit by the album listening party here, but I do get a sense of a narrative. There's certainly a perspective that changes throughout the album. The beginning feels kind of front-loaded with your standard, this is who I am, this is where I come from, very much about, identity, neighborhood, proving, your artistry and all of that. But as it goes on, it kind of takes on some more in-depth themes and some more mature topics. The man has literally changed. Like, his lifestyle is not the way it was. His priorities have shifted. There's tracks on here about, changes in lifestyle, sobriety, fatherhood, all of these things that sort of come in later in the album. And then by the end of it, you kind of get a sense that maybe this whole thing isn't even for him anymore. The very last track, proclaims, hey, this might be the last one. This might be it for me. And it's really kind of staggering to watch this transformation occur that I feel like, mirrors his own personal life. And I think a full-length album is a great way to do that. I always feel like a lot of times albums, they're a platform for you to tell a story. And a lot of times people just don't use it to its full extent. I think this is an exception to that. This is definitely telling a story. It's telling a narrative. And it's an interesting one. It's one that uses the music to also kind of convey what it's trying to tell. And I love stuff like that. Not every single bar and every single rhyme is gold, and I can be a bit of a stickler about that, especially if you're in hip-hop and bars are kind of your thing. There's a couple lyrics on here that I feel are kind of forced, but in general, it's one that I would come back to, and it's one that, even though it's long, like, I still get something out of it with repeated listens. I've only listened to it twice, not including the album listening party, where we only got 5 tracks there. The only thing I think I'd really say is, since it is a name change, I don't really feel like I have a really solid understanding of who Broox is going forward. There is so much variety, and it does try to cater to so many different demographics that it does get a little watered down. I don't really get a really solid identity of what a Broox song sounds like. But, that's all something to consider going forward. I think for what this album was, it didn't necessarily have to do that. It's a transitional piece, and as that, I think it's done a really good job. So yeah, I'd recommend it. But that's not all that we're here for, of course. Is this album weird? Let's pull up the weirdometer. Not really. It has its moments. If you define weirdness as something that deviates from the norm, I think it has its weird moments. There's a couple of the instrumentals that kind of sound a little sci-fi-ish, a little different. But for the most part, it plays up a lot of really familiar hip-hop themes that, doesn't throw me for a lot of loops. There are a few surprises, I suppose, and in that sense, you could consider some of it a little bit weird, just considering how not weird a lot of hip-hop is, unless that's your shtick, unless you have a shtick of sorts, where that's your thing, is you're weird. I feel like a lot of hip-hop artists kind of feel a lot of pressure to not be weird, because then you're not taken seriously, and nobody wants to be not taken seriously. I don't know, I'd probably give it a 3. Not very weird, but very much worth your time. And I think that will do it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of the music scene. Just by watching and paying attention to stuff like this, you are a part of it. And we appreciate you paying attention. We appreciate you listening. And I'll see you in the next video.
Fish head soup is a mighty fine soup, even though it's kinda green.